Hello everybody, just another little video here just to show you some more of the things I've picked up over the years. I'm going to be concentrating mainly on 1/72. Uh, that's what I've done throughout most of my adult or even teenage years, from like most of us when we all started off with Airfix. And actually, talking of Airfix, a couple of years ago I picked up some box top art for the old Airfix blue boxes. Um, these are about 8 inches by 6 inches, meant for framing, and I will show you uh, basically the box art that I received. Um, this is the Waterloo Highland Infantry set, much beloved by collectors over the years, and as I say, that's about 8 by 6, and it's it's quite a nice thing. If I get it framed up, I think that'll the colours are still there, and it's got a very nice nostalgic effect to it. The other ones, you'll be familiar with the Airfix Japanese infantry. I'm sorry if there's a bit of shine on here. They're sealed in cellophane, but that was the old Japanese infantry. Again, the artwork has never been bettered. Even the modern Airfix representations, they sort of sanitize them a little bit. I mean, I know on most of the kits the swastikas removed on German subjects for export, but there's something, I think they went away from any depiction of sort of violence, which is a bit tough on a wartime subject, but nevertheless, these box tops have never been bettered. Sheriff Nottingham, be very familiar to us from our childhoods of people of a certain age anyway. And favourite of mine, I remember getting this, couple of boxes of these. My mum and dad bought me, and it wasn't until many years later that I realised that the Romans obviously didn't use chariots for their warfare, but simply for their sport. But nevertheless, a lovely set that formed the basis of many armies in the 60s and 70s, and still paint up very well, still compare quite well with a lot of the stuff out there in the ancient plastic world. The opponents, which I obtained at the same time, the Ancient Britons, which were again a very lovely set. A few historical inaccuracies there. I think if I'm not much mistaken, the wheels on the chariots, but should have been spoked. But who cares really? I mean, to be honest, you take it as seriously as you want to, but I've got the Battersea shield is included in there, that was discovered in the Thames some years ago. They copied that, but altogether a lovely set. And one of my all-time favourites, and something I got bought as a birthday present, the Airfix Sahara Fort. This is the artwork for the original box. It changed a couple of times, and in the 70s, I think it was mid-70s, they did bring these out again with a very much altered artwork. There was none of the warm colours of the desert and the fort, and the more toy-like aspect to the figures in the front there, but a charm that came with these sort of illustrations has never been replicated. That was a great favourite of mine. Many Beau Geste type battles took place. The number one set of Legionnaires was very crude by the standards that we're used to today, certainly by the new Strelets Foreign Legion, but it had a charm of its own. Still miss those. Again, going back to the the forts again. I remember having the Wild West fort. The US 7th Cavalry or US Cavalry, in their small kepis, they weren't entirely accurate. They've been superseded now by much more accurate US Cavalry figures. But again, those in the Red Indian sets, one of Airfix's late 60s, I believe, issues, and yeah, very nice set. Going back to the single figures again, you have your World War I British infantry, which I believe are still in the current catalogue. They for a long time the only way you could get into First World War collecting or wargaming, and still very nice figures. Again, probably superseded by stuff from Hat and other manufacturers. Up next is a later representation of the Sahara playset. I'm not sure if this one actually, I think it came with figures. There was one that all of them they brought out, all the forts they brought out either individually or as a playset. But again, the vibrant colours and the artwork, whoever did the artwork was superb. I mean, it made you want to buy the box, even though when you got them home and took them out you thought, ah, right, they're all in blue or all in white or whatever, and it's not quite the same. But the artwork, you could drool over that for an awful long time. Another one which I built several times, the Sherwood Forest set with Robin Hood and the Sheriff of Nottingham. Wonderful old castle. I believe in the late 60s, early 70s, Terry Wise, the wargamer, used about a half a dozen of these kits to build a giant castle. He literally just connected them all together and added some other buildings and made a massive castle out of them, and it was quite beautiful. I mean, with a painted grey with a thin wash over the stonework, it looked good to go. Finally, in terms of the box art, the German infantry. I think this is the well, not the first issue. The first cover was the boxes with the little window in them, and they were very, relatively speaking, very crude by comparison drawings. But this is the Series 1 figures anyway, in a slightly newer box, which came with this small piece of artillery. I'm now going to go on and show you my bum. That's my last attempt at humour ever. This is, I believe, Barcelona University models. Somewhat strange company out of Spain, of course. And what you have here is, I don't know how it works out in terms of copyright, but they take part of Airfix's World War I Germans and fairly crudely copy them. As you see there, that's the World War I German infantry, and to it they add a First World War Fokker triplane model. Again, very simplified. That's it's clearly not a knockoff from the Airfix kit. It's much bigger, but that's BUM, the amusingly named bum company. And on the back here they seem to have some other figures, which you've got the Arabs there, you've got Japanese infantry, and I think the deal with all of them is that they have copies of Airfix figures in, and then they add to it. You get an edition of you know, some artillery piece or something that Airfix never ever produced. Now I'm just showing one of the Atlantic kits. Some of the Atlantic kits were pretty awful. I mean, some of the modern stuff, modern Italian infantry, even the Second World War stuff, the figures were prancing in a very strange manner on one leg. They looked very very odd to say the least. But amongst the medieval and sorry, rather ancient series, you had Greeks, Romans and Egyptians, and these, as you can see, were fairly nice representations of Egyptian troops. So fairly slender. They were actually quite nice models. They painted up well. I painted up hundreds of these and left them at a flat that I used to live at, and has always regretted it. But the Atlantic range, as you probably know, came with boats and temples, Egyptian temples and different scenes, and it was altogether a marvellous selection of figures. But I must say I never got some of the bigger ones. As has been commented on, the bigger the kits got at the time, and this is like 20 odd years ago, they were very, very expensive. This is a curiosity from Nexus. I believe we're out of business now, but this is the Russian Revolution set. Not much good for wargaming, of course, but you get, I believe you get a little artillery piece and a number of figures, including somewhere on there. There's a Lenin figure and some of the other leading lights of the Russian Revolution. But these were also matched up by sets of Mussolini, and also there's a Hitler set. I think these two figures here are meant to represent, is it Lenin and possibly Stalin or Trotsky, or one of those chaps who caused all that trouble all those years ago. But just a curiosity really, not much practical use. I don't think I'll probably ever paint them. The next I just thought I'd show, I picked these up a couple of years ago, the old Airfix astronauts, and they were quite a pleasant set. They always quite interested me. There was a little lunar buggy which was apparently simplified but quite accurate, and there's the actual chassis of the lunar kit with the drivers. You've got one figure there with the famous one figure there with the famous moon landing photograph with the flag, and some standing figures. They all painted up quite well. In the catalogue I remember them being painted. They look quite good, along with the lunar landing module. And just the final set of figures. I'm sorry this is a little bit, sorry about the messy room. Got books coming out of every place. And Vlad Tepes, Dracula the Impaler. Well, this is obviously the Transylvanian troops who fought against the Turks, I believe of the earlier Ottoman Empire, trying to take over some of these Balkan countries, and the hero rose up, Vlad Tepes, who was pretty nasty to his enemies, including impaling them on stakes and various bloodthirsty incidents. These are still in their bag. They include, if I can actually open it up, they include, I can't, but just for fun, they include an actual Hollywood screen Dracula figure, looking very much like Christopher Lee at the height of his Dracula performance. And that's only in there simply because of the connection with the name of Dracula, but otherwise it's a historically accurate set of the troops of that time. There are just a few of the curiosities, as I say, in my my collection. I'll try to show you some of the early Airfix boxes, the blue boxes, next time, and sort out some other oddities. As I say, I mentioned in a previous video that I actually converted an awful lot of figures from, well, what were they? They were Jacobites. I converted them from Waterloo Highland Infantry. And actually, just to finish off, I will show you a couple of figures that I've got here. These are of a different scale to which we're interested in, but these are elastilin figures. They're a metal frame like armature, and upon that is compressed a sawdust and glue kind of resin, and that's put in the mould and put under pressure. And these figures date from 1930 in Germany. At the time of Hitler's Germany, these would have been the toys. As you can see, one has got his arm. Potential suicide there. He's got a broken arm, and this is the trouble with the figures. The sawdust does dry out and they become quite brittle. But as I say, these figures date from 1930-32, and it's what young Franz in Germany at the time would have been playing with. And they were made out of this resin, as I say, this sawdust and glue substance, simply because of Germany's lack of resources at that time. They couldn't obviously produce the figures in metal as you could in England, so this was a way of creating figures, but they are very, very brittle. I don't think there's anything else to show you offhand. It's a dreadful mess. It's books and model soldiers everywhere. I get in trouble from my wife and indeed from my children, but I've pretty much taken over their bedroom, and it's the mess that you see. So this is it, warts and all. But thank you very much for watching. I hope this has not been too shambolic, but I'm still learning my way through this YouTubing business, and just trying to knock out a few videos while I'm in the mood. So thanks for watching, guys, and thanks for your kind comments in the past, and hopefully see some of you at either Reading or certainly at Salute next year. So look forward to that. Thank you.